Hey everybody, I'm Watch Me Open. Welcome to Behind the Pencil. I am joined today by artist Bella Rachlin. Hello, Bella. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I
Yay.
love your hoodie, little Spider Gwen.
Yay, thank you so much.
Bella is a artist, like I said, but she's also a sketch card artist for Upper Deck, and she's been you know that you've been on 9 sets that have been released. Like
Nine.
like I know you've done stuff that you've submitted already, but you're in double digits. You're a veteran.
Oh, really?
Like
I
you're
actually
you're a
thought that I did
seasoned
more.
pro. Well, I'm sure you've done more that's been submitted and not released. But just in terms of the Marvel sets that have
Yes.
already come out,
In
um,
general, from 2017, it's nine.
2017 premiere was your
Yes.
first set. You were on the
Yes,
e-pack edition.
hmm
So they normally there's two submission periods for artists. The first being the physical, the second being the e-pack. And so in terms of like the stuff that people could buy in boxes, you weren't in that, but the stuff on their website, you were in that, and that was your first
Oh.
Upper Deck Marvel set.
Yeah, I remember that one. It was very challenging.
And you've
Yeah,
been
it
on
was the
8 other
first
sets.
time I drew on such a small scale, so it was very weird but fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have zero artistic ability, and the language of art and art terms, it's very foreign to me. So I might feel like you're holding a child's hand walking through a museum. But so where are you from, Bella?
I'm from Israel.
Okay. You were born there?
Specifically, okay, I was born in Russia. I moved to Israel with my mom when I was a kid, and I grew up here. So
Okay.
I feel like I was born here because I
Yeah.
moved here when I was 3 years old.
How old were you when you started drawing?
um, since I have memories,
Yeah.
I, yeah,
Okay.
I just remember always drawing.
What kind of things would you draw as a child?
Well, as a child, I used to love drawing horses, um, fairies, horses. What else? What else? Just people in general, cars, which is very weird. But yeah, I had a thing for horses when I was a kid. Like I drew horses everywhere on the walls, in sketchbooks. I don't know how my parents let me draw on the walls, but it happened. Yeah.
So your story of how you became a professional artist is pretty incredible. Like your journey. Uh, so in Israel, when you turn 18, you have to join the military.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
you have to serve at least 2 years in the military, and so
Two, 2 years, yeah.
you're serving in the military, you're working, and you're still
hmm
pursuing art.
Well, I always wanted to be an artist. It was always a dream, and I always wanted to do something in that field. And I was hoping for it to happen. In Israel, it's a little bit difficult because there's no industry here, so you have to keep the dream alive somehow because they just the surroundings they wanted to take it from you in a way. I
Well,
make it sound like it's a very bad place. It's not. It's
no,
really good.
no.
It's just
But so
yeah.
even if it weren't a place like that, it's still very common for people to for whatever reason, life circumstances, abandon their dreams, give up on their dreams.
hmm
And so for you to carry the dream through that and never walk away from the art and actually put yourself in a position where you could have the opportunities, really, it's an incredible story. Um, so
Thank
at what
you.
point at what point do you make this, because I to me it's a big decision that I'm going to go to America, I'm going to study art at this world renowned school for comic art and
hmm
animation. What's that decision like?
It's very scary, and it's just very scary. It feels like a an adventure with just no guarantee for anything. So you're just going and you don't know what to expect or what will happen next. And what I try to do is just enjoy it at first with no high expectations and not to think too much about the end game, about the goal, because then you start questioning everything, because the beginning is very hard. You don't have anything, don't have a crowd, don't have clients, you don't even know what commissions are. It's yeah, it's the beginning of the journey, so it's a little bit scary.
So were the people in your life mostly supportive of it, or were there some people that tried to talk you out of it?
Well, my parents are very supportive, very supportive. My friends were supportive, except I guess my best friend. But you know, the ones that were not, they just didn't stay in my life. So it was like a support group.
Right. And I'm
Yeah,
sure that it wasn't that they thought you weren't good. They just it was a risk, like you said.
yeah.
There was no
Hmm.
guarantee. So, but it was your dream, and you wanted to
Yes,
pursue it.
yeah. I really wanted to do it because I already worked in so many jobs that I hated, and I was really depressed while I was working at these jobs. So I thought I better try and do something that I enjoy. And the worst that can happen is that I will fail at that, but at least I tried, which is much better than not trying, and continue working in jobs that you don't like.
So, how did you settle on the Kubert School? Because obviously, there's other places around the world where you could have gone for an art education.
Well, my best friend at the time, um, my best friend and my ex, he went to study there,
Okay.
and he told me all about it. And I was working at the time in an office, which I really hated. So it was like an inspiration from far away. And he encouraged me to try and go and do a summer workshop over there, or summer classes. And at first he tried to convince me to take small steps and just try to do some of, like, not instead of him, some of his homework, but just like for me to see how it goes, if I can manage to learn on my own somehow before I do this like whole step of just traveling across the world to the United
Right.
States. Yeah. And I tried that for a few months, and I had a lot of help from him. So I thought that I better give it a chance, because it's really tough doing it on your own. Even though I had help from him, like you have to dedicate time after work,
Right.
and it's very difficult if you're not like all the way in it. And at the time, because I had work like 9 to 5, it's not easy.
Yeah. No. So it takes
So yeah.
commitment and motivation.
Mhm.
You have to be organized. What
Oh
year
my
was
god,
it that
yes.
you came?
What year? What?
What
Sorry.
year was it that you came to the U.S.
Um, well, I to study. I
to
came
study? Yeah.
in 2000. I think it was 2014 or 2015.
2015.
Yes,
So you're
yes. I
23.
think, yeah.
Have you been in the
Hmm.
U.S. before?
Yeah, but it was not related to art. It was just like a long trip, just to explore it with some friends. It was not. It
Right.
was
So it
really
was,
not related. Just just a trip.
but it wasn't like coming to America for the first time. Like you had been to the U.S. The excitement and the journey was more about why you were coming.
It was more exciting, way more exciting than when you have expectations and something that you want to accomplish. Then you have much more excitement, I guess, than when you just go on a trip and you're like, okay.
Now, how long did you stay here for?
Well, each time I stayed for a few months, and I think in total, like if you sum all the visits together, it comes to 2 years, I think.
So you would take
So
summer classes here and then go back home.
mhm. I did it only once in the States. I only took the summer classes in 2015. And I went back home, and everything that I studied in these summer classes, I started to do on a daily basis. I quit my job at the office. It was very risky and very scary to have no income, but I thought there's no other way. I mean, if I want to do art full time, then I need to look at it as if I'm already working at it. So I set small goals, like to draw every day at least 4 hours, like between 4 to 7 hours, depends on the energy, and just treat it as a work day. And I started to post online, and slowly, very slowly, I received my first commission. I was like, "Whoa, it's possible! What?"
So I was just going to ask you, what are the emotions like the first time someone pays you to to
Well,
make a piece of art for them? Because that's the line of demarcation, right? Like you're an amateur and then you're a professional. Once someone pays you, what's that
um,
emotionally like?
it's it's incredible. I mean, you're like, oh my God, someone appreciates my art, and you look at it and you're like, oh, this is hideous. I can't believe someone likes it, because it's the beginning and you don't know what you're doing. So it really, it touches your heart, it excites you, and it scares you all at the same time. Because it's also suddenly a responsibility to give them a really good product at the end.
And I imagine that there's this like buildup of your whole life of the dream, and then
Hmm.
now you could see like it's a milestone. Obviously, the first time you're paid for your work. Um, was there a moment along the way? I know you said it was always a dream, but up until that point, was there a moment where it actually clicked in your head that I could do this professionally as a professional. Like I know I'm good. I know I want to do it, but it's different to feel inside that I'm good enough to do this for the rest of my life.
Yes, it clicked. I think somewhere around that year, around 2015, and when I recently, well, not recently, when I started to get more commissions and more projects, even though they were small, all of a sudden I realized I can do this every day. I enjoy it. I have energy that I didn't have before. Like I want to do it. It's like I want to come to the office, which is very different from the feeling I used to have in the previous jobs, where you go just because you need the income. So it was very different. And
So,
yeah.
so even after you've already been paid, even after your
Mhm.
first commission, you still have doubt. It's you still feel like it's a risk. And so it took time for it to fully, because you're like, this could just be a coincidence that one person wanted to pay me to do this, and then a couple people, maybe it's not that big a deal. But so it actually took more time after that first commission for you to really believe it that your dream was coming true.
Yes, but also I was prepared to just to do it no matter what. So it was a point where I decided to give everything, and I even if I had doubts, the feeling was I have to do it. Like there was not no point where I thought maybe it's not the way. Like I knew that even if it was hard and scary, that you know the commissions start to pile up very slowly, not like you expect. Um, I still thought that this is the way. I already quit my job. I don't want to go back. So.
So it feels like knowing, like I said before we started recording, knowing your story a little bit, doing my homework, that your background, what interested you most of your life was science fiction and fantasy
Mhm.
and these movies. When does Marvel enter the picture for you?
Well, I actually grew up watching the animated series of Spider-Man,
Okay.
and I really loved it. I mean, it was one of my favorites as a kid. This one, Ninja Turtles and Batman, and also X-Men. But from some weird reason, it was not always on when I was watching TV. I don't know,
Mm.
kind of missed it. So I grew up on that, and then it came back around the time that I was in the military. Like all of a sudden, I got exposed to comic books, and I was shocked. And then I just started reading comic books for the first time.
So, so you had been exposed to Marvel in your childhood. You watched X Men animated series. You watched the
Hmm.
Spider Man animated series. Yeah, the
And the
first
movies, of course.
and the movies when they came out, but as a
Hmm.
child, really.
Yeah,
But the first comic you held in your hand was a Batman comic.
yeah.
It was Jim Lee Batman. Like so, how do you go that far? Like the, to not pick up a comic in between. It just seems like that would have been
um,
the next step after you love those shows. It's just,
well, I actually didn't know about comic books. We don't have a lot of comic book stores here in Israel. We have at the moment, I think, 3 or 4 comic book stores
wow.
in all of Israel. We had more before COVID, but COVID. So
Right, right,
yeah, and not a lot of people were exposed to that. The comic books that we had a few like Hebrew comic books, but they were not superhero related, and they were like about high school kids and very unrelated stuff. And
right. Like Archie, we have here. I don't know if you've seen
yeah,
Archie.
something like Archie. Yeah, they were nice, but even though I read them as a kid, I never thought that it exists as a job or that there are comic books in general. And not until I saw like an actual comic book and I was like, wow, this is insane. I mean, look at all this artwork. Somebody sat down and drew all of that, and it blew my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see Jim Lee Batman, first comic
Mhm.
book you've ever actually held in your hand. You're blown away. What do you remember? What your first Marvel comic book was?
First Marvel comic book. Um, the one that really got me, Old Man Logan. I
Okay.
remember. I remember at first I just opened it and I was, I always liked X-Men, like from the series, the movies. I already knew who Wolverine was. And all of a sudden, and I don't know why, but I expected it to be a little bit like, I don't know if the word soft can work here. Like, I didn't expect it to be so violent.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
for adults, I just expected it to be, superhero comic book or something like that. And all of a sudden, I'm opening it and started to look at the picture, and I was like, okay, I'll start reading. Go page by page, and all of a sudden, it's like a movie. Like I'm already in it, and I'm blown away. Like, wow, this is crazy, and it's so adult like. It's not what I expected at all. So yeah, from there I started to read more. I think Civil War was the next one I read. Like they're really unrelated, but
Right.
because of the artist, I think McNiven.
So
So yeah,
did you end up finding yourself enjoying the stories as well as the art?
yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes, they just blew my mind. I did not expect them to be so complicated and clever and to have such a continuity. Like there's so
Absolutely.
many things connected, and I did not expect it. I thought, okay, each comic book is a comic book, whatever. No, no,
Yeah,
it
and
surprised me.
for the most part that they've gone this many years and still been able to create new ideas. They've recycled some things here and there, but it's really incredible, and it's fun to read. I wish I read more comics, but the art, obviously, even
Mm-hmm.
even in the earlier years, I feel like before it had that realism sense, and like you're talking about with Old Man Logan, it wasn't bloody, but the art was still incredible back like in the 70s and 80s,
Oh
and
yeah, of course.
and it like the evolution of it to be able to see it all, and I think it's a great time to be a comic book fan right now, right? Like, because we
Yeah.
get to see them in the movies. We get to see these things as a kid that I could only hold a toy of, and so I think because obviously somewhere along the way in the U.S. in the world, being a comic book fan, being a fan of superheroes, it wasn't taboo anymore. It was popular. It was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, the
Where
movies and everything that happens like with the MCU, it's incredible. It opens a new era for kids to love more comic books and just get into this world. I think it's
yeah,
amazing.
no, it's great for the imagination,
Hmm.
and obviously what you do requires some imagination. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
now,
quite a lot.
some of what you do you doesn't require imagination. You taught yourself some things. You were studying anatomy books to learn about the body
Yes.
and how to draw the different parts of the body, the physiques, the muscle groups.
Hmm.
How much of your admiration for Boris and Julie
Well,
motivated that pursuit? Because they are very physique,
um,
driven artists.
how much? Well, think 100% admiration. Yeah, because they're incredible, and they're still like on my very top list of inspirations, and I still look at their books every time I need to do like this crazy pinup, and I want to have some of their influence in it. So yeah, like I would look at the anatomy that they're drawing, and it would just blow my mind how. Later on, when I discovered how, I knew what I need to learn and practice. So yeah, a lot of admiration to those two.
They're incredible. I hope they haven't done Marvel in some time, but the Marvel that they did do is still we still get
Oh,
to look
it's
at it and
it's still
appreciate it.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then for someone like you who's into fantasy, they do a lot of fantasy art as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
now, all those details that you learn and taught yourself, you mentioned it earlier, sketch cards, right? Like the
Yeah.
challenge of taking all that and putting it here. Um, what has that been like? Have you learned anything that makes it easier, or have you just learned to deal and live with the medium?
I think I learned to deal with it well, to adjust it. Like I actually used layouts on a larger scale at first, just to kind of figure out, because it's very difficult to all of the sudden change from A4 size 9 by 12 inches to 2 on 3 inches, 2.5 on 3.5 inches. I don't know. It's just uncomfortable at first, because you don't know how to even manage the workspace. Like you're just thinking, how do I do the regular things that I do on this size? So yeah. Um, oh, it was really challenging.
So is it still uncomfortable, or are you at least comfortable now where you know your limitations on a sketch card? You're not going to try to overextend yourself and what you try to
Yes.
put down there.
Yes, I know that there are things that I prefer not to do. Like I prefer not to draw full figures on this scale, because then I will have to go to a optometrist and get like new new glasses. So I already wear glasses because of drawing. So yeah, there are things that I know what not to do and how to work with it. It took a few
So
years.
with the demands that Upper Deck puts on artists and how many cards they send you and how often, how regularly they expect you to give submissions, obviously something an artist needs to do with that many pieces is they need to have a variety.
Mhm.
When you're limiting what you're going to put on a card, how challenging is that to keep creating new different pieces?
Oh my God, I think it's the most challenging because if the options are to draw a portrait or a half figure, how many how many half figures and portraits I can do that will be so different from one another? Because it's not like I can invent myself every set like from the top. And they have sometimes deadlines, and sometimes they until they ship it here to Israel, until it arrives, the deadlines gets shorter, and so so yeah, I mean, I have to figure out how to think how to make the same layout of a portrait interesting, which is, I think, very challenging.
So
And
at this point now, with all the cards you've done, like I said, 9 sets released, probably another 3 or 4 that we're waiting to have released. Uh, like, what percentage of your time on a piece do you spend actually figuring out what am I going to put here?
oh my, well, I don't know if it's somewhere here, but I actually had a list before I start a set. After I check like what are the characters that I cannot draw and what are the things that I cannot draw. I sit down and it takes me like between an hour to 2 hours just to write down characters that come up, like just characters, and if I have a specific idea. So, sometimes even more, sometimes even 3 hours or 4.
So,
Yeah,
and I imagine as you do more and more, that amount of time is only going to grow because you're not going to want to repeat yourself for the most part from
yeah,
previous. So that's
yeah,
an incredible challenge that I don't. I think that's something that artists don't get credit for. I think they're judged, from one piece to the next, and not everything that happens behind the scenes that you have to do to prepare and make sure that you're producing something that's quality and unique. So I'm going to thank you on behalf of all the collectors
oh man,
that haven't thought to.
thank you. I'm glad that you appreciate it.
Um, so in terms of Marvel characters, and the ones that you've done, are there any that you found more challenging to put down? Because you have a style. Obviously, you're not always the source material isn't always in your style. It's almost, I mean, you have a unique style, so it's never in your style. But in order to translate it to yours, or maybe it's a character that just has parts of them that don't make sense in your head. Like I know someone who won't draw Juggernaut because he can't
Yeah.
understand how Juggernaut, can't turn his head. He's like, the character doesn't make sense, so I can't draw it. So is there any character for any reason that you just feel like it's harder for you to do them the way you want to do them?
Yes, there are a lot, and actually, Juggernaut is one of them, specifically because of that reason. So I'm not gonna repeat that. So I'm gonna name another character. Let's see. Characters with a lot of machinery are very difficult. So sometimes when I can't like figure out what goes where, I like drawing War Machine, for example. But sometimes, like with all the things that they add in comic books, I'm not sure. Like, am I allowed to draw this gun or this machine? So it's sometimes I avoid drawing characters with a lot of accessories on them.
Mhm.
Um, and bulky characters are very difficult, like Hulk, because of his proportions. They're like I can't draw him too scary, and I can't draw him too handsome. It has to be somewhere in between. So I draw him a lot in Marvel sets, but it's always as a last resort when I'm out of ideas. And I'm like, okay, I can't think of any other character, so let's draw the Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
yeah.
when you take on a commission to draw a character that you've never done before, you
Mhm.
actually go and you research the character. You want to learn
Yes.
about the character, and
Hmm.
it's just something that you need to do in your head in order to put them on paper. You kind of need to understand them. Uh, are there any characters that you've had to do that for that you were surprised that you didn't know about them, or you learned things that you thought were exciting or interesting about them, and you kind of like started to follow them a little more?
A lot of characters, because I am not familiar with all the characters in the comic book world, and I'm still learning a lot of new things about Marvel characters, DC, Image. So it's refreshing if I get to draw a character that um, I haven't seen before. Then I go to like one of those YouTube accounts with
Hmm.
there's comics explained, and uh, a lot of nice videos that explain incredibly about the history of a character in like 10 minutes. So so yes, there are a few characters that I got to draw, and then I got to like listen to some videos about them, look up some art, and I was very inspired. um, let's see if I remember the name correctly. One of them was Star Sapphire
Star
from
Sapphire.
DC.
Okay. Yeah, from
Yeah.
DC. Yeah.
Yes, I haven't seen this character before, and I didn't know that it was related to Green Lantern, which I really
Right.
like. Yeah, so then I saw a few videos about her, and about the world with her powers and everything. It was very very interesting, and all the artwork is really beautiful as well.
Yeah.
Um, and what else? Who else? Well, there are so many. I feel like I'm blacking out.
No, it's
um,
fine. So, I mean, you mentioned a DC character, and we talked before about
mhm,
Marvel and the history of Marvel and how many stories and how many characters. Like, and then DC, it's the same thing on the other side. Obviously, there's some people that are
mhm.
loyal to one, loyal to the other, but it's still the fact that there's all this fiction available, and it's an expression of these creators' imagination. It's very cool and exciting. So it's cool that you it warms my heart that like you take such an interest in the character before you just carelessly like slap it on a piece of paper. I think that's very cool.
I think it's more genuine if I know something about the character, and then I have some sort of idea how to draw it. It's also from previous mistakes. Like I remember a few commissions that I just drew the character from Google images that I saw, and just gathered up some idea and I drew it like a very pinup style or something like that. And then later on, when I read about the character or saw a series about it, then I felt like, what did they do? It's it's nothing like the character itself. And it happened to me with Ahsoka Tano, for example. Like the first time I drew her like the client really liked how she turned out, and that's the main thing. And I was really happy with it. But um, I don't even remember like what impression I gave her, but it was very very unlike the real Ahsoka, which is a fighter and a serious Jedi. And then I
Right.
saw Clone Wars, and I saw the Mandalorian and everything, and I was like, what did I do? It's nothing like her.
Yeah.
She will never pose like this. She would be, in the middle of the fight, kicking butt or something. So,
Yeah. How exciting
yeah.
was it to get to see her in live action though?
Oh wow, it was amazing. The actress was perfect. She was
Yeah.
perfect for the
And
job.
the
Yeah.
makeup and the effects and everything, it's
Hmm.
very very well done. It's cool. um,
Yeah.
so I want to talk technical side now of you
Hmm.
making these beautiful works of art. Um,
Thank you.
we asked you before the show to talk about some of the tools, the instruments that you prefer. So I want to talk about those for a little bit, because I think it's important that as an artist, like you need to feel comfortable with what you're using, because it becomes an extension of you, right? And if you don't feel comfortable with what's in your hand, the finished product is going to suffer. So so you mentioned these pencils,
Yeah.
uh,
Those are black wings. Yes.
right? So what was different about these pencils versus other pencils you use that just you feel more comfortable with them?
Something about the quality of the graphite of the product itself, the fact that it's so well designed and that they take so much pride in their products has a lot of influence on the product itself. Like you would read about the pencil all of a sudden, about the inspiration of, like, each pencil has a limited edition series of pencils. So it's quite inspiring that they put so much energy into a graphite pencil, which you would not expect because
Right,
you use it. And the quality, I mean, yeah, I mean, their quality when you sharpen the pencil or when you write with it, with low quality pencils, like you would feel like the graphite break a lot, and you would feel like certain grainy things that just like chemicals that get stuck into it, and never happened never happened with the black wings. You immediately feel like there's a point to the product. Yeah, and
so
also you end up collecting them because they're really nice.
how long does one of those last you?
um well, I have I have so many, so I use them
Okay,
very randomly, i
yeah,
guess I
I have a
guess
friend who's like that with shoes. It's
they
hundreds of
last
pairs of
quite a
shoes,
while.
and okay.
Yeah, but
uh,
when you collect them, then you forget, like you have so many and you start using them all and think about it.
so you color with paint, and I mean, it's one of the ways you color, but your work with watercolors. As someone like I said, who doesn't know a lot about art, I have tried to draw and paint. Watercolors are like, I don't think people appreciate the 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 time and effort that goes into being good at watercolors. And you do it so well. You do it so well.
Thank you.
I like I don't know where along the way you learned like the sequences of colors and how things pair and complement each other, but like you just have this intuition where you put your first strokes down on a paper, and in my mind, I don't know how you're going to arrive where you did, but you see the progression because you do these wonderful time lapse videos of your work, and you get there, and it's stunning. So I want to talk about these brushes that you mentioned. You said they're Series 7 Windsor and Newton.
Hmm. Yes.
Now, I
uh,
know brushes have different tips.
yes.
You use like an assortment of tips.
Yep. Yeah, I use a few different ones. I have everything here, so I can just reach out. um Few of my favorites. Okay, so I have a very fine one. Wait a second, it's not that one. Usually I skip like the sizes. So I have one of my favorites is size 1. It's very like pointy. Size 3, which is a little bit shorter and it's a little bit wider. And I have a white and a square one, which is, I have no idea what size is this one. So yeah, like um, a variety of sizes and shapes, and they all have very different results, like with the watercolors. So it's nice to have a few brushes to create
Yeah.
certain textures.
No, and so the reason I mentioned, the pencils and the brushes is, in the case of the brushes, it's how important it is for you to have all those tools, all those options, all those different sizes and tips. Because if you only had, let's say you only had a wide brush, then you wouldn't be able to do the details.
Yeah.
If you only had the smallest brush there, then a piece would take you days. But so
Oh my God. Yeah.
you have, this tool bag, and it helps you. There's a specific brush in there for each part of the piece, and so knowing which, when to use which one is a skill, and I, like I said, just another part of what you do that should be appreciated, because it's not just, you don't just walk up to a desk and just start slapping paint down. There's a process, and there's thought, and we talked about the creative side, where you're sitting down there for hours just thinking about what characters can I draw, what poses, what costume, what variations, that it's going to be original, and that it's not going to seem like same old Bella Rachlin. And to be successful at that is really, it's very cool. Um,
Thank you. Thank you
so
so much.
I feel like everybody's process as an artist is going to be different. Um, there's going to be things that some people don't do, like steps that people can just leave out. Uh,
Hmm.
Now, what are, like, once you're done with the creative side, once you know what you're going to put down, like, in briefly, just what are the steps that you go through? But from the beginning, from the time the paper goes on the desk to the time that you take that beautiful Instagram picture.
Well, steps. Let's see. First step is a layout, and it's not always directly on the card or on the paper. I do it like on a draft paper, just to figure out what I want, and it's important to do it separately because you don't want to have marks, unnecessary marks on the paper itself, because the paper is often very sensitive to graphite, so it's very hard to erase it. So
Right.
that's the first step, which is not even on the paper. And then you go to sketching it. Uh, then depends on the mediums that I'm going to use. If it's specifically on sketch cards, then I would use ink, like for fine details, and leave a lot of room for colors. And if it's like on a larger scale, I feel free to use graphite, also because graphite is a little bit messier, and on a smaller scale you don't want anything messy because it's so tiny, like every dot, unnecessary dot, can be the wrong one, so you don't
Right.
want it. um, let's see, so yeah, we have pencils or ink, and then we have the first medium. um, and I switch mediums, so it really depends. If I'm working on a sketch card, I will use Copic markers. And then I will use, like the finishing touches will be either with colored pencils or with acrylic. It always depends on the characters that I'm going to draw and on the amount of time. If I don't have a lot of time, I will use Copics and colored pencils. If I have a lot of time, then I will use acrylics, because acrylics and painting, it takes more time. It's more complicated.
Right.
And on a larger scale, it depends on the character and what feeling I want the character to have. Like if I want to be a little bit more painted, a little bit more fantasy like, or if I want it to be with a little bit of texture, then I will use a different combination. So, but yeah, it's in general, it's like pencils, ink, first layer of color, second layer of color, and the third layer of color, which is like the final. And it combines a few mediums in between.
So when did you? I'm assuming that you didn't always use different mediums to color, like multiple mediums in the same piece to color. That seems like a more advanced thing. That even I feel like there's, other professional artists who, when they just color with one medium, that's just what they're comfortable with. But when did you? It feels like there's a bit of ambition required. That I want to take this thing that I've been doing it this way, and then I want to try to add to it and make it even better. Like what was that like? When did you? How long have you been doing that? Because that seems like like I said, it's not something that every artist does, and it seems like a risk because you could end up you're trying to improve the piece, but you could end up damaging it.
Well, it started as an experiment. Um, like in the beginning of the journey, of the artistic journey, it started as an experiment. I always had a lot of mediums because my mom used to get me a variety of mediums for me to try at the local art shop. And also the salesperson there was very pushy. So he's like, buy her this and that. So I always had colored pencils, acrylic, watercolors, like add everything. And I tried them all separately. And I think at a certain point when I started to do art on a daily basis as a day job, I tried I tried to achieve a certain look, and I had no idea how to achieve it. I wanted to copy like a style that I saw online. I think it was either Mark Brooks or Adi Garnov that I saw their art, and I was like, how? I have no idea what they're using, what they're doing, but I'm gonna try an experiment to see what works. So I just took everything that I had on the table and I tried to see a combination. And so it started from there, just to see how can I copy something like a certain look that I see. So I tried applying watercolors, and I felt like there was something missing. It looks flat. I was like, how can I add more? And then I added a little bit of colored pencils, and then I was like, something is missing. I want to add more. Let's try acrylic. And then it started from there, like the combinations. I
You're
started to see what
like a mad
works best.
scientist.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to try. And there were certain experiments that did not work. Like the paper did not handle the amount of color, or certain mediums did not combine well. And then it was like, okay, so this piece will not see daylight, but it was still good to experiment.
So those pieces that didn't see daylight, were they or were they commission pieces that you were?
No, they were just for practice.
Okay,
I never did any of that like with a commission, because with someone's commission, you
right,
wanna do what you know, like
right.
so you will give a nice product. And if I did an experiment, it would be uh, knowing that if it goes wrong, then I'll have to start over for this person. Like they will not even know that anything happened, but
Right.
I will do this. Yeah.
Which can happen even if you're not experimenting.
Yes, sometimes,
So
sometimes, yeah.
that's what I wanted to ask you was because you know everybody we show everybody the highlight reels and never the behind the scenes. So you've had to scrap a piece before, right? That's something that you were
Yes,
commissioned
yes, of
and
course.
look, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I think nobody ever gets to hear about it or see it. Um, that that's got to be very frustrating, So, like, what's the most amount of time you've spent on a piece that you had to abandon, walk away from, and start over?
Um, wow, it was really frustrating. It actually happened twice. Uh, well, two times that I really remember. I'm sure that it happened before, like on a smaller scale, but
Right,
I remember those two the most because they were supposed to be covers, comic book covers. It's not commissioned for one person that is going to see it. Well, not one. Maybe he will show it, and I will show it on Instagram. But like the amount of stress that it involves with a cover is higher, because a cover needs to be perfect. It's a cover of a story. Like it's very exciting that someone wants your art to be on the front. So it happened with two covers that I spent, I think, on one of them around 6 hours until I realized it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. It's messed up. Or even like a full day of work, which is, well, 6 hours is sort of a full day. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
along that 6 hours, because at 6 hours you said no, it's not going to happen.
It's not gonna.
At,
Yeah.
at where in those 6 hours, after how much time did you maybe start to panic and then try to, I can still fix this?
And it wasn't even. Yeah, there was panic involved, of course.
Because you have to, you're a professional, right? So there has to be the thought in your head that like, I can fix this.
Yeah. So I thought I can fix this, and it happened before when you think you ruined it, but then you fix it. Like it happens. Like with certain mediums, they're very unexpected, and you think that's it, the piece is done, and you just continue, and it ends up fine. Happens a lot, like with those unexpected mediums, like watercolors, for example, or acrylics or gouache. And yeah, sometimes you think, okay, I've just ruined it and it's fine. But no, with those pieces, it was done, and it was not worth um, adding any more to the piece because I already tried, and 6 hours, that's the amount that I tried to put into it to see if I can save it somehow. If I can take those 6 hours to good use, which is not
Right.
to the garbage.
Right.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's good. It's good experience because then you learn what not to do, what doesn't work.
For sure, and I think it's important for anybody who intends to be a professional, who's like an aspiring artist, to know that excuse me, that does happen, and so that if they encounter that in their own experience, they don't get discouraged and abandon it because even someone as skilled as you, it happens to. So I think it's important to show that side to people so that they don't so that they can maintain confidence in themselves if they're trying to pursue something like art.
And it happened with covers specifically. So yeah, never give up and don't think about
Right.
abandoning art just because of something like this.
And a cover, it's not like a card where you could, or an A4 where you could just pull another one out of the pile, you know?
Yeah, I mean, with covers, what I usually do, I print the first layout or the draft directly on the paper, so I can, or I light box it like from a draft. So I
Right.
always have the draft or the pencils like scanned and saved just in case, because you also have to get like an approval for the first sketch, so it's always scanned. You always have the first pencils on your computer at least. uh, but what happened with those two covers, I painted on the original pencils, so it was devastating. I was like, I can't believe that I just ruined the original, like, but it happens. And it's a very, very good experience to know when to let go and that it's not the end of the world. Even though you put like a full day into it, it's okay. It can happen and it's fine. You just print it later on or you lightbox it and you start over. Yeah.
So we talked about the time lapse videos you do of some of your pieces, but you also have these tutorial videos on your YouTube channel. What what inspired you? What prompted you to kind of like take people behind the scenes and see the process?
um well, few things. Actually, from videos that I saw some of my favorite artists put up some tutorials or videos of their process, and I, I thought I can try and share what I do if someone is interested in seeing it, because sometimes it's I don't feel like I'm explaining well enough when I'm editing a tutorial. I'm like, what am I saying? I don't know. So it's like just for fun, just to see if people are enjoying it, to see if it helps someone, or I don't know if it can help someone to learn the things that I know. And it's just a little bit difficult whenever I edit it, but yeah, that's the main reason, just for fun.
Yeah. Well, it also sounds like a little bit of you paying it forward because you said you've seen other people do it and you learned from those.
Yes.
Um, so, in terms of learning from other artists, like direct interaction, obviously, you could be inspired by looking at someone else's work. But have there been any other? I know you mentioned your friend who you went to school with. Um, have there been any other artists who have been helpful as far as interacting with you and critiquing, maybe critiquing your work or giving you advice?
Yes. Well, I every time I went to a comic book convention, I brought my portfolio with me before, like the time that I had a table. Obviously, at the beginning when I just went to conventions, I brought my portfolio and I asked for critique from artists that I liked and were available. And it was very, very helpful. Like, you need to shut down your ego whenever you do something like this, and just be very open minded, and like just be prepared to learn everything. Anything that they say can help. So it was very helpful going to artists in Artist Alley. And one that I really remember was going to Neil Adams, and he spent 25 minutes explaining about stuff, and it was so much information. And like, his time is very precious. Like, he has a lot of people, and
Yeah.
it's a convention. So I was really, really, really glad that he spent so much time. Just it felt like a lesson, like teaching me in a way.
Wow.
um, so he was one of those artists that I just memorized everything he said. I remember Mark Brooks was also very, very nice and very helpful. Like, the critique is not like this is just nice, just do this and that. Bye. It's a critique. They will butcher you on the table. They will tell you, like, this is not good. You see this? Don't do it ever again. But it's very helpful whenever someone directs you to the right way. Like, you need to do it. Like, critiques, portfolio reviews, and yeah, those few minutes, like, with these artists, that they are just like engraved on my brain. It's really helpful.
Has anybody come to you at a convention with their portfolio?
A few times, yes, and I was very surprised because
Really?
I kind of felt like an aspiring artist at that point. It was I think at my second convention ever, or the third, and I was like, "You're asking me? I'm just beginning here, you know. This is
Wow.
just the beginning of the way." So um, I was very touched by it, and I was glad to help. And I also, like, gave a rough critique. Like, I was like, "This is nice, but don't do it ever again, okay?"
I was gonna say, yeah, you have to be honest, like Neil and
Yes,
Mark were with you.
yes. Like, you can be nice, but I also I also mentioned to the artist that came to my table, like, are you okay with honesty? Are you prepared for it? I'm gonna be nice, but I'm gonna be brutal with you. Like, if you're prepared for it, let's do it. No problem. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
no, that's good. I imagine that's, like you said, a touching moment when that happens to you, and you kind of didn't see yourself in that regard as someone
No.
who was going to be critiquing other people. So that's very cool. So I want to talk about your style. I said you definitely have a style, and I feel like there's these general buckets that you could put people's styles in, and just like to dumb it down, like there's like you could say cartoon or comic or realism or dark or happy, and I feel like yours is this really cool place in between cartoon and realism, where some of your pieces, like I could see this version of this character animated, and then like
That's
and then you
cool.
and then you do like Wanda, like but Elizabeth Olsen, and it's just the realism. It's like, it's like a photo. Um,
Yay,
so
thank you.
so that's very cool. So to be like, I feel like you give yourself a lot of opportunity, like by being in that space with your style to do some really cool things. You mentioned this piece as being one of your favorites, or you feel like most representative of.
Yes.
So this is Venom and Spider-Man.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot going on here. Right? Like
A
the
lot.
the background work is insane.
Thank you.
How so let's just talk about the background. Like how do you how do you lay that out? Like in terms of all the secondary elements. Obviously, like, okay, you're like, I'm going to do this scene where they're falling down from a building, but I mean to include all these other things, like the level of thought, like down to like every little piece of glass. Like, how does that happen for you? Like, do you look at scenes, like similar scenes of people falling out of windows?
Yes, actually, I screenshot a lot of moments from shows, movies, just as a reference and inspiration. And in general, I save a lot of photos, like of cities, of specifically ruins. Google probably thinks that I'm crazy, like all the things that I research for the artistic mind. And this one was actually a sample for Marvel. So they had like the general idea.
Yeah,
They wanted Spidey and Venom falling, um, like with a cityscape or just buildings. And I thought, how can I make it interesting? And then I just combined reference, inspiration, and I was like, let's just add some things so people will start wondering, where did they fall from? Let's see, like an office chair, coffee, some glass. So yeah.
yeah. Um, and for like the poses, do you use references?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So like actual images. I know some people use like they take figures and pose them the certain way.
I used to have a figure, it broke. Uh, I guess it wasn't a really good one. So I have a Venom figure, an action figure that I use quite often. And when I can, like with these characters, I only use myself for reference for the hand. Like sometimes I take a picture if necessary, like of myself or of a friend. And there are a lot of apps that you can use. Like you can build your own character. It takes time. You build it like in a 3D way, and
Right,
you
right,
build
right.
the pose, and it takes time, and you need to be patient because those softwares, they're not always anatomically correct. Like their anatomy is good, but it can look funky, so you still need to use other things, like other resources as well. It's like a combination. So figures, photos of friends of or of myself, and those 3D softwares. So everything like combined.
That piece in particular, how long does that take you to complete, start to finish?
This one took, wow, probably around a week of work at least, like a full week.
Wow, it's incredible.
Thank
And
you. Thank you so much.
you said it was made for Marvel. Like,
It
does
was
somebody?
just for sample. Like I went to
Okay,
an
does somebody
interview.
own that though?
Yes, I sold it. So
Oh, okay. Well, they're very lucky whoever they are.
um, actually, another artist that does covers and other projects.
Wow,
Justin Hunt. So
Justin Hunt.
yeah, I
Okay,
think I hope
I'm not
I hope I
familiar.
did not mispronounce. Yeah.
My artist knowledge is I'm not. I could know a lot more artists. Let's just put it that way. Um, but in terms of knowing artists, do you pay attention? I mean, obviously, you said you have the people that you know from working with and conventions and stuff, and then your inspirations from books and other sources. But do you pay attention to other artists? Like, do you like stumble on new artists
All
and
the time.
yeah?
Yes. All
So
the time.
you actually mentioned a couple, um, and we could talk about them.
Hmm.
So this is sketchbooks.
Yes. I think his name is Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew
But
Sutton.
yes.
So he's on Instagram. This is his Instagram. It's just sketchbooks, and
Hmm.
this is some of his work.
He does very cool art, and he does a lot of artwork on sketch cards as well.
So, is there something in particular when you see an artist when you're drawn to another artist that you appreciate or recognize? Is it like the way they
This one,
color?
this piece is amazing. One of his best. Yeah. Yes, the way they color, the amount of details, the anatomy is very important. Like also like if it's correct, and also how they break the anatomy. Like in comic books with superheroes, you have to know where to push the anatomy a little bit to make it not really realistic. Um, so yeah, all of those things combined.
And so this is Pauline Dallas, or I'm
I don't
probably
know
not
how to
saying.
pronounce her name, but yeah,
She seems like she
I
does a lot of tattoos.
yeah, she does incredible pinups. Like they're somewhat realistic, and then they have this stylish energy about them as well, like very pinup, and I think
Oh,
it's
look,
just
and
great.
there's your comment.
Yeah.
So you were kidding, you are a fan.
Yes, yes, I think it's great.
Wow,
I
look at this take
I
on
mean,
Princess
I was
Leia.
even considering like ordering a commission at some point, and I will eventually.
And then Kanan White is another one that you mentioned.
Yes, his work is incredible.
Yeah,
His
the
attention to
details.
details.
Yes, I see it. Oh, and he's
And
doing a time lapse here of his Moon Knight. That's very
mhm,
cool.
yeah, the videos are awesome. Like the artwork in general is fantastic. I really like the combination of the details of the ink, the precision, and all the poses that he does. They're very very dynamic and refreshing. And he has a very cool style. Like I can recognize whenever I see his posts. So this is also something that is important to me when I follow artists. That you can just recognize it's them before you even see who who posted the artwork.
And I can feel that way when I see your pieces.
Ah, yay!
I,
Thank
I
you.
mean, it's true. So I feel like we've talked about so much.
Yeah, we
Um,
did.
I, I I hope that this was not your average interview in that we got to talk about things that people can't just go somewhere else to learn about you. We talked about your life, your journey in art, your approach to the craft, and your passion for these characters and how you fell in love with them. And like I said, it's such an incredible story. It's such a unique story, and for you to be where you're at now, it's it's inspiring to me. And I'm not even pursuing art, so I imagine to like that little boy or girl, who's doodling right now, wondering, could I ever do this and get paid for it? Like you're definitely telling them, yes, you can. Like just by being here. So that's very cool. Um,
Thank you.
Now to the part that everybody always wants to hear about. Uh, what kind of commissions are you accepting?
Well, usually A4 size, like average size of A4 is approximately 9 by 12 inches. Sketch cards, I don't have the AP cards at the moment, but whenever I have, then I accept the commissions of those. And what else? And projects, covers and commissions, like they differ. It can be a cover, it can be a personal commission. So yeah.
Okay. What's like the largest size piece anyone's ever commissioned?
Um, well, that was on canvas when I was 17. It wasn't, I didn't see it as commissions at the time because it was so different. It wasn't like when I wanted to do it full-time art. So it was,
Right.
felt a little bit different.
Okay.
Someone commissioned like a meter and a half. I don't know how
Wow.
long it is in feet because we're in the metric
Yeah.
system here.
4.5 feet.
So something like that.
About.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was quite big. It was a difficult one. It was the
So
biggest commission.
it is something that size something that you're open to if somebody wants to get something larger done?
At the moment, no. It's a little bit too big for my studio at the moment. Like
Mm,
I need to figure out where I can work on such scale. I have a big commission coming up on A2. A2 is like two comic book cover size, like two 11 by 17 inches
okay.
combined. It's quite big. So
Okay.
it's the biggest I'm accepting at the moment because like I'm thinking about if I can put it on the table or not. So yeah.
And do you have a waiting list right now for commissions?
Yes, I think I always have like some sort of waiting list because I'm accepting projects in advance. So there's always like something to do. Um,
Right. So I mean, for someone
my
looking to commission you, like about how far, about how long is your wait list right now, time wise?
between a month and a half to 2 months because right
Okay.
now is I'm a little bit stressed with some deadlines. Well, not
Yeah.
stressed, but yeah, deadlines.
No, no. I want people to know, what to expect. And
Mhm.
honestly, for a lot of artists, 1 to 2 months is not bad at all. I know people have waited, a year to 2 years for artists to get back to them. So that's encouraging. Uh, so uh, all of your social media links, you have a link tree. We're going to put that link tree in the description for this video so people can find you if they don't already know about you, which is criminal in my mind if they don't already know about you. And they can see your work and they can get some of your work. Bella, can't thank you enough for doing this. This has been so much fun. I had a really good time learning about you and your work and all these things. And I really believe that everyone else who watches this will too. So thank you for everything you do for the art community, for the sketch card community. I hope you do it for a long time. I hope you live to be 1,000 and we get all the work that we can take from Bella Rachlin.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me and for doing this interview. It was really, really fun. And the questions were really refreshing and different. So I'm really happy that I'm here, that I could share some of my art journey. And yeah, and thank you for everything, for all the kind words. And
Thank you guys. And everybody, have a great week. We'll see you next week. Have a happy collecting and go find Bella.